it was January, and it was like 6 o'clock at night. So it's completely dark. I knew that I had to get off the bus at that bus station because I had a change of bus. And so I waited for every single person to get off the bus before I got off because I was already convinced that they were tracking me down. I knew that that's what they do. I'd seen it happen hundreds, if not thousands of times. So by the time I got off the bus, I went to open the door and boom, there's already immediately two guys, a 6-foot guy, Greg Wilhair, who was David Miscavige's henchman at the time, and another woman named Sharon. Anyway, they were right there trying to stop me from going even into the bus station. And they said, "Oh, you're not doing this." And I just walked into the bus station. I put my purse in the middle of the station on the floor and I sat down. And in my mind, I just thought, okay, if they even lay one finger on me, I'm just going to scream and hope and pray that somebody will take pity on me.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. My name is Sam.
And I'm Melissa.
I was raised in a family with 4 moms and 35 kids. We were members of the FLDS Church, which is a polygamous group run by their prophet Warren Jeffs, who is now serving a life sentence in prison.
I was raised mainstream LDS in Utah. Sam and I have been married for 11 years and have 2 awesome kiddos.
Yes, we do. And today we are very excited to welcome a special guest on, Claire Headley. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Of course. Thank you both for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you, and been looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, me too. You have been requested hundreds, literally hundreds on every single video that we've done with Scientology. Everyone's like, you have to get Claire on. And I'm like, it's in the works. I promise it's coming. It's coming. We got to the point where there were other people commenting, being like, they promised Claire's coming. They promised, and commenting for us. So everyone is so excited. And I can't wait to hear more. You shared with us a little bit when we were going back and forth in email, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have a billion questions to ask you. And I'm just so excited.
How appropriate.
Yeah. And of course, we know you have a successful YouTube channel called Blown for Good, and you're out there trying to help people that are in the process of leaving Scientology or trying to find help in some way. So we're very interested to just get into your story and what brought you to the point where you are today.
Yes, sounds good. It's going to be a deep dive, but that's all right. I'm up for the task as long as you are.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we kind of just want to start clear back at the beginning. And I guess I would ask, were you born in Scientology or did your family convert at some point?
Yes. So, yes, I was absolutely born into Scientology. Ironically, I was named Claire, which is French for clear, after the state of Clear.
Oh my word.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, were your parents Sea Org members? Or
So,
I'm
yeah,
trying to
so-
get all the lingo, right? But it's like Sea Org, and then there's the normal parishioners. Is that what they call them?
yeah, I call them civilian Scientologists just
Okay.
because Sea Org has the paramilitary cloaking, which
Yeah.
it's just a very different life than the Tom Cruises or the Billy Bobs
Yeah.
of the world that live in a normal house and have a car and just go and do Scientology 12 and a half hours a week because what's not normal about that?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was born into Scientology. Both of my parents were hippie teenagers. I was born in England in the 70s. And so my parents were both not Sea Org members when I was born, but they were staff members at the Manchester Org in England when I was born.
Okay.
When I was around 3, my dad decided he wanted nothing more to do with Scientology anymore. So my parents were divorced, and that was my first experience with Scientology's practice of disconnection. And I've never known my dad my entire life.
Wow.
Since that point. So
have you reconnected with him in any way since you're leaving Scientology?
no, I tried. The good thing is that all of he has 6 siblings, and I've reconnected with all of them. So that's good. That's positive.
Yeah.
Apparently he's the black sheep of his family, whether it be in Scientology or out of Scientology.
Oh no.
If he wants to correct me on that, here I am. I'm not looking for daddy. I just want any family that will talk to me, you know?
Yeah.
Wow. So
Okay.
you said you were 3 years old when you first experienced what that was like, because we've heard rumors about, and well, I would say facts about how Scientology splits up families. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that went down?
Oh yeah. I mean, so again, 3 years old. This is frankly some of my earliest life memories is I remember my dad just being gone and thinking it
Mhm.
was my fault. And I completely shut down, stopped talking. And my mother's solution to that was to take me into the Scientology organization so they could give me what they call an R factor, a reality factor, like
Mm.
explain to me what's going on and that my dad is a bad person and blah, blah, blah. I mean, can you imagine? I'm 3.
No, that's what I was saying, a reality factor. Is that a common thing in
Mm.
Scientology, a reality factor?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
that's different than auditing or being questioned in an auditing thing?
Yes. So like here, I'll give you an example. Melissa, let me give you an R factor. Scientology is an applied philosophy that, you know, whatever. I'm just
Yeah.
obviously whatever. I don't, I, I quit the language the moment it became my choice,
Mm.
whether I
Mhm.
had to use that language or not. The day I escaped, I quit it. But yes, that an R factor, any Scientologist, if you say, "Hey, let me give you an R factor," they know what that means.
Right.
Okay. So they're just drilling into you what they want your reality to be. Is that an
Exactly.
accurate way of describing? Okay.
Completely. Yep.
Versus an auditing, they would be more like interrogating you if it was an auditing for having done something wrong.
Yes, that's
Okay.
right. You know, it's their narrative, and their indoctrination. That's what an R factor is.
Okay.
So it's like a let's give you an explanation of what's going on so that you get what you get with the program and you understand what's going on here. And that's what an R factor is. So it comes from reality. There's two different triangles in Scientology. There's the ARC triangle, which is affinity, reality, communication, which equals understanding. The R factor is taken from that R of that triangle. So
Okay.
if they give you reality, then you'll understand what's going on, and everything will be hunky dory, allegedly.
Oh my word. And
Wow.
they start that at 3
Well, in this case.
in this
Yeah,
case. Yeah.
in my case, yes, for sure. And then things didn't get much better thereafter. Within a year, so now I had just turned 4, and my mother, as a single mom, signed a billion-year contract and moved to Scientology's headquarters in England, which is St. Hill, the St. Hill organization in West Sussex.
Hmm.
At which point I was handed over to the cadet organization. So from that point forward, if I saw her 2 hours a week, that was a good week.
Oh
Wow.
my word. So at the age of
Gee.
4.
Hmm.
Now, when you signed the when your mom signed the billion-year contract, um, does that make so was she still a staff member, or do you only sign the contract when you become a Sea Org member?
So, okay, so great question. Staff members in like lower level organizations are required to sign either a 2.5 year contract or a 5 year contract. Those are the two options.
They love their contracts, huh?
Oh boy, do they ever.
Like, what? Like, not like, "Oh, why don't you come be a staff member for however long you wanna be here?"
Sign
No,
here.
sign here or this
Yeah.
one, you get
Oh,
2, 5, or a billion. There you
yeah,
go.
but don't forget, this is a volunteer activity.
Oh,
That
okay.
Oh my
Oh
of
my
gosh.
gosh.
course, they've since inserted volunteer language because of the many different ongoing lawsuits, including ours, which we'll get to.
Okay.
Um, but yeah,
Sweet.
so staff at lower level organizations, which are called Class 5 organizations, those staff are required to sign, like I said, 2.5 or 5 year contracts. And then those staff often get recruited to join the C organization, and then they have to sign a billion-year contract.
Okay. So
Well,
if someone has signed a billion-year contract, like if we hear that terminology, if someone signed a billion-year contract, that means that they were a member of the Sea Org.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Okay.
see, that's good to know. I wasn't aware of that. So,
Yeah.
Oh, though with the caveat that so once you've signed a billion-year contract, then you do a grueling program. It's training, physical manual labor. You basically have to prove that you're going to do any task assigned, no matter what it is. And you have, yes, sir, no, sir. You're running everywhere. Chinese school, which means chanting, Hubbard's precepts, definition of a team. That's one way you can definitely know a Sea Org member. Ask them, what is the definition of a team?
And it is?
A team has a tendency to know what the other team members are doing and thinking and coordinate thereby and therewith. And that is the definition of a team, is people who cooperate one with another to push forward a common purpose. And they normally get along great. It's awful that I wish I could forget it. I would do anything to walk back the mental programming. But unfortunately, in my case, I was born into it. I was learning the language of Scientology before I even knew the English language, is the fact of the matter.
We totally understand that. Even I think our last episode on something, I was reciting primary songs, right? Like we would sing songs from the time in the Mormon church, from the time that we're 3, even earlier, honestly. Even in church, they would have for as soon as you're 18 months old. There's like Sunday school classes. So from the time before you can talk, you're learning to sing these songs. And there's lots of songs now where I'm like, I can still say every single word, or the Young Women's theme, or all of these themes and memorization things that you're taught from a young age. And like you said, whether you want to remember it or not, if it gets started, all of a sudden it's like, and I can say it all still.
Exactly. And speaking of programming, so you're 4 years old at this point. Well, you were 3 years old when your mom took you and said, hey, this is what's best for you. And then they start the indoctrination right then at that age. And at 4 years old now, at this point, with your mom gone most of the time, I mean, am I correct in saying you were 100% convinced that this was the only way?
Yeah, no, I was 4. What I was actually convinced of is that the only way I would be able to retain a relationship with my mother was to cooperate and behave and do what I was told. I didn't believe in Scientology. I didn't even barely knew what Scientology was at the age of 4. It was like being hurled into a completely foreign world. The cadet organization is where children of members of the Sea organization are groomed to then carry out their own billion-year contract. So the best description I've come up with of the cadet organization is Lord of the Flies meets orphanage meets Nazi youth. That's all those elements combined, because there was an extreme lack of adult supervision. There was one staff member, a member of the Sea organization, who was responsible for, depending on the year and the time, anywhere from 40 to 50 kids, ranging in age from 6 weeks old to 14.
Wow. Could you give us an example of like a typical day in the life of a cadet? I know that I'm sure that looked different depending on different age groups. How long were you a cadet? And then what would be a typical day look like for a youth?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. I was in the cadet organization from, like I said, age 4 until age 10. And Scientology is very statistical in nature. How that translated into the cadet organization is that we all had checklists in place of parents. So our checklists were things like make your bed, brush your teeth, eat breakfast, study Scientology for 2.5 hours. If we were in school, then go to school. At that time, I was attending a public school in England, which, talk about confliction. English schools are run by the Church of England, at least they were at that time. So here am I growing up in the cadet organization and trotting off to school and singing hymns from the Bible in school, and then being really confused, honestly, about the stark differences that I was being from all sides. It was like, ugh.
Yeah, that would be like major conflict from the little bit that we understand, right? Because Scientology, there is no theology to it until you're further in the levels, and then you kind of learn more about aliens and things like that, and we get that. But like the idea that there's a God, that you're kind of taught there isn't one, right?
That's right. No.
Then you're going to a Christian-based society and school, on the other hand, and learning about Christianity. Can you imagine that'd be super confusing?
Yeah, it was very conflicting. And just very confusing. But of course, Scientology had the stronger sway over me because I was leveraged because my mother was a member. And again, I'd already lost my dad, so I was like, I can't lose my mom too.
Yeah. And I don't know if you'd be able to answer this. Do you know what was going through your mom's brain at this time at all? Or have you had a chance to talk to her about the fact that giving up your child and seeing them 2 hours a week at 4 years old, like as a mother myself, I cannot imagine doing that. And I know that obviously in these high demand control groups, people do things that they wouldn't normally do. So I understand that. But have you had a chance to ask her, like, what she was thinking? Was it really hard? Was she feeling like she was making a sacrifice? Was it easy because she was so involved in it?
Yeah, good question. So unfortunately, my mother is still in Scientology and has not spoken to me. The last time I talked to her very briefly was at my grandmother's funeral in 2011, but I've had no relationship with her since 2005. In fact, she has done hate videos about me that are on Scientology's hate sites about my husband and I. So it's really sad. But to answer your question, I can answer from my memories as a child. So, for example, there was a time when I was around 5 or maybe 6 that she came to see me and she was crying. And she told me that she was being sent to Europe for 6 to 8 weeks. And it was going to be over Christmas. And she told me that she had queried this and requested that she not be sent because she had a daughter. And like I said, she was crying. So it was
Yeah.
very obvious to me that she was distraught about this.
Yeah.
But she had no choice. Then another time, about a year after that, again, she's a single mom, and it's hard. It's very, not to get too deep in the weeds, but there's no dating in the Sea organization. You're not allowed to have any physical contact outside of marriage, basically.
Mm.
So she had a boyfriend. I do air quotes because when you're working 16 hours a day, like what do you you have no vehicle, no free time, like what are you going to do? Anyhow, but she had emotional attraction to another Sea Org member, and they ended up doing the deed, and as a result of that, she was sent to the Rehabilitation Project Force, which is really slave camp reprogramming. In that program, you're required to dress all in black, run everywhere, get interrogated for your evil purposes, and do heavy manual labor 8 hours a day. And you're not allowed any contact with anyone in the Sea organization that's not also on that program. So again, so 8 weeks in Europe, now however long she was on the Rehabilitation Project Force, my mom just became this, I've reflected on it. My entire childhood was really just a battle to try and spend any amount of time with my mother.
When your mom got sent
Jeez.
away to the rehabilitation camp, did the organization tell you what had happened or try to paint her in a negative light to you? Like, did they ever try to pit you against? Because that's something we see in the FLDS, that if a mom gets sent away, because sadly there's the same type of disconnection where the prophet will send the mother away, they'd be sent to houses of hiding, repentance houses, and the moms would be separated from their children. But the children, in the meantime, are being told, your mom is evil, she's wicked, she's doing, she did something wrong, she needs to repent, and you can't talk to her or else she's going to have to start the repentance process all over again, and then it could be your fault. There's like a lot of pressure on the children. And I was just curious if it was something similar where they're pitting you against your mother for her, I know they wouldn't call it sins, so I'm just so used to our terminology, but for the things that she did wrong.
Yeah, no, her transgressions,
Yeah, there you go.
overts, withholds, crimes. So may I ask, what's House of Hiding, though?
So within the FLDS church, when someone, in air quotes here again, does something wrong in the eyes of the prophet, or he just wants to get rid of them for whatever reason to show the control he has over people's lives, he would send them away to this hidden location from the other members of the church, and they were supposed to repent.
So nobody knew where those locations were.
Well, other than the church leaders
Yeah,
and
but like
Wow.
the
very
families
select
didn't.
few, the families did not know where they were. They were just gone. And in some cases, they didn't know what they were repenting of. I mean, they were just told, go and repent. And if you're lucky, you'll come
Wow.
back one day.
And they
Oh
looked
my
a lot
gosh.
different. They were in all sorts of different hidden locations, but we've heard stories of some people going and they might be in a house with 4 or 5 other women who are being separated from their children, and they could be there for a year or two. Or we had one story of a woman
Yeah.
who got sent and she lived alone in like this small little house in the middle of nowhere with a 10-year-old boy who needed to repent as well, and she was supposed to take care of him, and it was just the two of them there for, what was it, 3
Yeah.
years
Oh
till
my
she repented.
gosh.
So the purposeful disconnection to try to exert the power and to pit people and their families, to separate families, but also pit them against each other at the same
Mhm.
time, in this
Mhm.
idea of they're wicked, they did something wrong, don't trust them.
So
Right.
were you fed that kind of information about your mom?
Yep, absolutely. That she, I don't actually remember if they outright said the words, but and again, as we've been talking about, it's all these layers of language. So I
Mhm.
was told she went out 2D. That's what they call it.
Oh.
Out second dynamic. there's
Oh.
the there's the 8 dynamics. First is self. Second is your family, your relationship, sex, etc. So out 2D means you've had sexual relationships in violation of the policies of the group.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Okay.
So yeah, they definitely told me that. Did I really understand what that meant at 7? I knew she'd done bad things, and that I knew I was not allowed to know where she was, and I wasn't allowed to see her or talk to her. And yeah, and so I was just assigned to another family, like, oh, these guys are going to keep an eye on you while your mother's
Geez,
gone.
that sounds
Sounds familiar.
familiar. How long was she gone?
About 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
And ironically, isn't it all? So she was doing construction, building the castle that's at St. Hill in England.
Oh,
And
wow.
she got hit in the head with a brick and suffered a severe concussion, had to go to the hospital, which they did take her to the hospital.
Oh,
Then they brought her back from that, trained me on how to do what's called touch assists. Have you heard that word yet?
No.
no.
Okay. So there's all these bodies of technology in Scientology, and assist technology is a whole body of technology. But touch assists is essentially a process of you're literally using your finger and touching various parts of the person's body with commands, and you say, feel my finger, thank you, feel my finger, thank you. It is supposed to allegedly help alleviate injuries, illnesses, pains, you name it. Or the alternate command to feel my finger is look at my finger, which doesn't actually mean use your eyes to look at the finger. It means just like, look at the finger through your body.
Wow.
Imagine the finger.
Imagine, yeah. Okay, so that was
Right.
supposed to be healing in some capacity.
Yeah, so I was trained on how to do this at 7 so that my mother, who just got a massive concussion, could be nursed back to health by me. I mean, it's
Dude,
just
Oh my word. The mother that
and
they've kept you from completely for the last 3 years.
yeah, and that's the sad part of it. I was just like I was kind of scared, like, oh, I have to do touch assist now. This is kind of scary, and I could get in trouble if I mess it up. But the overwhelming emotion was, thank goodness I'll at least get to be in the same room with my mother again.
mhm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and then how long were you able to do that for? Like, be able to assist in that way with her before
So
she recovered?
yeah, so that was like a week or two, and then she went back to working long hours again, and
Ugh.
yeah. So another time she escaped and left me behind.
Oh, geez.
Oh my word.
Escaped as in tried to just leave the whole organization?
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
Wow.
She snuck off in the middle of the night. I woke up the next morning. She was just gone. And again, they're talking about, influence of the group on your parents and what you think about them and so forth. It was like all these sympathetic looks like, oh, I was the child that the mom was a big bad evil person who escaped in the dead of night. And it was, it was really mixed emotions. It was most of all terrifying. Like, I could not imagine surviving that terrible life without my mother. She was pretty much the only reason I'd stayed there. Not that I had an alternative to get out at 7 years old, but it was the only reason I had tolerated so much abuse and trauma already. And then the secondary emotion to that was, what the heck? Why'd she leave me here?
Yeah. Do you think when she left that she thought leaving you there was better for you, or do you think that she knew what a bad situation you were actually in?
So I think that she wasn't and again, this is speaking from what I know from after that, not from my moment in that moment. As by this time, I think I was 9. So she had gotten pregnant, and she had now remarried to somebody who had a lot of debt, and so it was a very, very stressful situation for her.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, she was pregnant, and she was being told, like, the rule had just come out that no more children were allowed to be born into the Sea Organization. So she was just falling apart from stress and everything else. So I don't think that she intended to permanently escape. She was just like having a moment, but nonetheless, it was a huge disappointment in that moment for me as a kid, like, what?
Well, yeah, because whether it's temporary or permanent, there's no way for you to know that as a child, right? So
Yeah.
everything like that's going to feel permanent. I mean, because you
Exactly.
don't know in the future.
That'd
Oh
be
man.
terrifying.
Now, you said she remarried. Did she marry somebody within the Sea Org, or did she marry an outsider?
So she married somebody who was had reached the upper levels and was like highest audited, counseled, and also he was a class 8 auditor. But they had a rule, and again, not to get too deep in the weeds, but there was a rule that had come out that nobody who had taken LSD was allowed or qualified to join the Sea Organization. And he had, but at the same token, he was doing a job that was a Sea Org member's job. So she had to write a petition to get approval to marry him.
Interesting. And I know you're saying like they don't really have a lot of time, and yet we've heard like a couple different people having gotten married in the Sea Org. And then, because I'm sure they realize at some point it's going to be almost impossible to keep people from canoodling, right? So
Right.
they're like, so
Good word.
so then they're going to have to accept that people are going to end up getting married in it. And then you said at some point they decide, okay, well, people can get married, but they can't have any children.
Yes.
Was that just because it was considered a distraction, or because they didn't want to do any more cadet schools?
Probably both. Well, definitely both. It was that absolutely they want members of the Sea Organization to completely commit. And also, there had been so many problems with the cadet organization because, who knew when you have 50 kids and no adult supervision, things are going to go very sideways. I mean, talking about the cadets that I knew in the UK cadet org, there were some of those that ran away and ended up homeless on the streets and committed crimes. And so it was an organizational problem that they did not want to have to use resources to take care of. So it was literally just like, oh, let's just change the rules and nobody can have kids anymore.
That's just
word.
so mean. Like
Yep.
to just require that of your workers. Oh, no more kids. And I wonder if, I mean, obviously I think the distraction was a big part of it, but I wonder if it was a lot focused on the money that is going to these different programs and raising these kids, and they wanted to shift the focus to what money they can get instead of what they have to give to raising these young kids. But I mean, I would assume that everyone would be smart enough to realize that if you're allowing kids to be born into it, it would just help the organization grow. So I'm kind of confused on their reasoning.
That's what I was going to say. Warren Jeffs did a similar thing. Like right now, still, there's no children being allowed to be born. And it's biting
Dwindling.
them. Yeah, because when you say there can't be any more children, well, now there's no longer anyone indoctrinated from the time they're born. And if you're relying completely on converts in groups that are like this, it's just going to end up dying off at some point. And the numbers are dwindling and dwindling because those people leave. And then there's not like this next group to take over. So it is interesting that they still chose that over having, instead of thinking like, oh, the next generation's going to rise up and take over, they were just like, let's just cut our losses and not do that.
Yeah. And I don't think it was money, because believe me, they were not, I mean, we barely had food to eat. It was not, there was no adults. There was, like I said, one adult who was the cadet org in charge, was her title. And then other than that, we were grouped into groups of 5. So like when I was 7, I was in charge of a group of 5 7-year-olds, and I had to make sure that they did their checklists, and I had to make sure that they were doing what they were supposed to be doing. So it was definitely not money. I think it was distraction of the parents, and then also the problems that were being generated for the the public relations, the things like that perspective. I mean, there was again, there are so many crazy cadet org stories, but another time, so all the cadets were living in dormitories. So I was in a dormitory with, like I said, about, 25 other girls. And one day I fell out of bed, cut open my head, broke my collarbone.
Jeez.
And the next morning I went to school anyway, because school was the only good part of my life. Like truly, I loved school. It was the only normal part of my life. So I would not miss school for nothing. And you can imagine when the teacher noticed that my head was bleeding and I couldn't move my arm. And next thing you know, I'm pulled aside by the headmistress. And it didn't occur to me, honestly, until like 25 years later, when I was thinking back on what had happened, that she was very concerned that I had been abused, because she was like, well, what happened? And I was like, oh, I fell out of bed. Of course, I didn't mention, oh, I live in a dormitory with 25 other girls and we never see our parents or any of that. Because again, the indoctrination starting at 4 was you never, ever, ever say anything bad about Scientology under any circumstances. And if you do, you're a suppressive person.
So
wow.
Speaking of suppressive person, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more, but is that just meaning someone that's against the church? Is that as simple as it is?
As simple, somewhat, yes. But also, so in Scientology, there's the Scientology ethics book. And in the ethics book, there's the 12 characteristics of the antisocial personality, which a suppressive person is considered to be an antisocial personality. And it is carefully cloaked, because, and also I've since learned, taking pieces of normal real world language and twisting it into Scientology's terms and conditions and so forth. But so, for example, an antisocial personality is someone who's bent on the destruction of all mankind and speaks only in very broad generalities and doesn't want to see anyone get better and things like that.
That's interesting. Okay. Wow. So you said you were in the cadet program until you were 10 years old, right?
Yep.
So you're going to normal school. You're in this other situation you can't speak out against. You're not really having any type of relationship with your mother at that point. What happens at 10 years old?
So, yeah. So can I ask a question though?
Oh, of course. Yeah, please.
Do you have an equivalent of a suppressive person?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's called on our side of things, an apostate.
Apostate. Okay. Well, we get called that too.
Oh, do you? Okay. Yeah. So for us, an apostate is someone, they're the worst of the worst, right? I mean, if someone that has never been a part of the church, we called them Gentiles, someone that had never had the opportunity to be a part of it. And they're like, oh, those poor souls, like if only they had what we had. But an apostate, or an SP in your case,
Mhm.
they had what we have and they gave it up, and now they're fighting against it, and they are the worst of the worst
They're way
possible
worse
person.
off.
Okay, so I would be willing to bet money that David Miscavige ripped off the word apostate from FLDS, because the reason I say that is because Hubbard talks about, suppressive persons, antisocial personalities, so forth, so on and so forth. But I mentioned the hate sites that Scientology has had on many, many different people who have left Scientology, and apostate is very high up in the language.
Oh,
Defrocked apostate, specifically.
Okay.
interesting. Okay, so that word was used as well.
Yeah, just not from L. Ron Hubbard, but from David
Okay.
Miscavige.
We've
Yeah.
heard that David Miscavige may have taken some other pointers from Mormonism in general, like we had like the I'm a Mormon campaign,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
there was the I am a Scientologist, but I don't know which one came first. Someone else in our comments was saying that the Scientologist might have done that one first. I'm not sure, but I'm not surprised that apostate. If he's trying to come off, if David Miscavige is trying to come off like a regular religion or another religion that is successful and growing the way that Mormonism has grown, like unlike any other religion, right, in the last 30, 40 years, then he might be taking notes. And apostate is definitely a word within
Yeah.
Mormonism.
I mean, I was in meetings where David Miscavige would say that he wanted the management of Scientology to study what the Mormon Church was doing and copy
Oh,
that and replicate that. So it's absolutely
Really?
not theoretical. Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, Mitch Brisker was the director and did all the filming and stuff. You would probably like to talk to him, because even in 2015, so Scientology set up Scientology Media Productions in Los Angeles,
Uh-huh.
like a film studio and everything. And Mitch was telling me that David Miscavige had all of those staff go to the BYU
Mhm.
studios for a whole
Or
tour.
CES, probably.
Yes. Yeah.
The church
wow.
education system and the amount of media that they do and their YouTube yeah, they have a lot of
Interesting. I wonder if the
media and marketing.
leaders I wonder if the leaders of the church know David Miscavige. I'm not saying like the Mormon church leaders. I'm not saying they're like best friends, but I'm wondering
No.
if they know each other and have talked.
Yeah. I wouldn't yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. There's a policy letter that Hubbard wrote that's called is referred to as Art Series 8, and that is it's part of the Art Series, as the name implies, but the theory that's outlined in there is so you go and study other people and see what they're doing that's successful, and then you copy that.
Okay,
Oh.
you know what? You know what also this is making sense if their media director or something, because when we were first looking up Scientology at all, and I went to YouTube and I was like, I want to see what Scientology says about Scientology, right? And they have a YouTube channel. And when I played the videos, like their own marketing videos, Sam got home from work that day and I was like, it was giving me a lot, like very similar to the mainstream LDS church, which is the church that I grew up in. I'm like, it was giving those vibes a lot of the same type of videos,
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
discussing like a certain topic. And I was like, man, this feels like eerily similar. And it kind of made me feel a little funny. So I turned it off, but I'm not, that's crazy that they were using those same, like looking at CES and being like, what are they doing? Makes perfect sense to me because they were doing a good job giving off the same type of vibes
Yep.
for
So
sure.
Yep.
speaking of marketing and trying to follow the mainstream LDS church and their whatever, I've heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard that the numbers for Scientology have dwindled a lot over the last years. Their marketing is not working, so it seems.
No, no, absolutely not. And especially, um, so Mark, my husband, and I have been speaking out about Scientology, Mark since 2006, me since 2008, from the day they sent child services to our house. Before that, I was terrified. And at that
Mm.
point, I was just so I, draw the line in the sand, like, oh my God. So that's when I started speaking out. So for a long time. And I would say that especially when with Lawrence Wright's book, uh, Going Clear, Scientology in the Prison of Belief, I think it's called. And then HBO did a documentary based on that book. And then, of course, Leah Remini, Scientology in the Aftermath. Those specific things historically dramatically changed the public awareness of the abusive and destructive nature of the cult of Scientology. 100%. We had Mark and I had done documentaries before that, and it was they were fine and they were good, but the reach was nothing like what those later the Going Clear and the Scientology in the Aftermath did in terms of raising public awareness. So I would say now, like even Scientology's current campaign, Curious, it's like, dude, do you not know what any human being on earth does right now if they're curious about something? They Google it,
Yep.
They Google it. Yeah. No, for
Yep.
sure. Honestly, when we found out that Scientology was about 20,000, I thought it was much bigger. Maybe it's just because I had heard so much chatter, even though I didn't look into it deeply by any means. But I think that it was enough out in the mainstream that most people, if they hear the word Scientology, they're like, oh, that's crazy. Like that, we know
Yes.
Scientology is crazy. And I never even felt like I needed to dig any deeper just because, oh, okay, that's been established as crazy. I can move on with my life over here. But I
Yeah.
thought that there was a lot more Scientologists than what there were. Was 20,000 an accurate number?
Yeah, that's pretty close and dwindling by the day. Of course, they're rich in dollars, poor in people, is how I put it,
Mm.
because their best people have escaped, and they're absolutely struggling to get new people in. Scientology wants you to think that they're expanding, and they especially want their members to think they're expanding. So if you go on, I'm sure on YouTube, there's examples of Scientology events. If you listen to David Miscavige talking, he'll be rolling off about we're at a watershed of history and we've reached unprecedented expansion and all this. And of course, they are buying up all these big buildings in various different major cities around the world and renovating those. But the fact of the matter is, those buildings are completely empty, and they're losing staff by the day, as I know from the work that we do through the Michael J. Render Aftermath Foundation.
Wow.
Wow. Well, that's great. Honestly, I mean, what else can I say other than I'm just glad to hear that people are aware of what's going on, because on the outside, a lot of these organizations look like one thing. They put on a nice face and they say all the right things to make themselves look good.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really dive into what's actually going on, it's people like you. Thank you, Claire, for what you're doing to spread awareness. And I think this is just such an important work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming
Yeah.
back to your story, because I am very curious about your teenage years. Because I'm so intrigued at that. And I know I'm glad we went the direction we did, but now I have to know what happened when she was 10.
Yeah.
Right. So so at 10, my mom took a leave of absence from the Sea Organization for 1 year to have a baby and pay off my stepdad's debts. She never went back, but she remained a civilian Scientologist. So for 2 years, I went to a Scientology school in England known as Greenfields. We won't get too deep into that, but let's just say that one of the teachers there went to jail for 5 years for abusing students there. And it
Ugh.
was covered up by Scientology. Again, it's Scientology protects abusers and is an environment in which those types of people thrive. You think it would be different than that, but in reality and statistically, it's not. And because Scientology has such strict rules about you're not allowed to call the police, you're not allowed to involve any governmental oversight, those are the crippling factors that make Scientology such a dangerous and abusive cult, especially for children.
Yeah.
Anyway, so fast forward to now I'm 13, and my mom and my stepdad have had now 2 kids. So I have 2 half siblings, and we moved to the US.
So, but up to that point, even after they got married and she became a civilian and wasn't a staff member, you weren't allowed to go and move with her and live
No,
with
I
her?
did.
Oh,
I
you
did.
did. Okay.
Yeah, no. Great point though. They actually tried to make me stay. And I and I was very afraid that I was going to get in trouble for saying no, but all I'd ever wanted was a normal life outside of Scientology. So to me in that moment, unfortunately it didn't pan out to be true, but I thought this was my big moment. Like I was going to change the entire course of my life because my mother was finally leaving the Sea organization.
Okay.
Um, that didn't end up happening. I signed my first billion-year contract when I was 7,
Oh,
then
wow.
again when I was 12, then again when I was 13, then again when I was 14. Like all through this time, I was being heavily recruited to go back into the Sea organization.
So wait,
Um,
sorry, real
yeah,
quick. Why
yeah,
would they need you to sign multiple billion-year contracts?
yeah. Great question. Because as I mentioned, Scientology is very statistical. And so recruiters would get a stat for signed contracts. It didn't matter if the person had already signed a contract before. In Scientology, that's referred to as stat push, by the way.
Oh my
Oh my gosh.
gosh.
Can you imagine? That'd be like baptizing someone like multiple times to get
Right.
baptism numbers up.
They did it in the well, not for that reason, but in the FLDS church, they did baptize people multiple
Multiple
times.
times, I guess that's true, to put them
Uh,
into different organizations.
yeah. So you said 3 or 4 contracts.
Okay, so let's think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total.
Oh,
5 total.
okay, so you
Oh
signed
my
5
word.
total. Did these contracts look different each time you signed them?
No, they basically look the same. The motto of the Sea organization is Latin. I can't remember what it is exactly right now. Something revenomous. Yeah, something revenomous. But it means we come back. So that's taken from the concept that you're in a human body, but you're a thetan. Your soul is a thetan, and when that body dies, you're going to drop it and go pick up another body. And then you get a 21-year leave of absence, according to the contract. And then you get to come back
Is that
and
I'm sorry.
resume.
Wow. See,
My
we
first thought was like, oh, 21-year vacation. I'm like, they're probably just waiting for you to get from birth to being an adult again, and then you're supposed to start back up again, right?
Right.
Like,
But I will say, I have to say this because I thought to myself, like, gosh, I've never seen someone wait till they're 21 to join the Sea organization. Like,
hmm.
if they really were coming back, why are they being made to join the Sea organization at 16? Why can't they at least honor the 21 years? Not that,
yeah, that's a good
there's
point.
there's no credit system. It's no one's ever gotten credit for serving on the billion-year contract other than their current lifetime. That's the fact of the matter.
Yeah.
Maybe it takes a lot of years to find the next body, right?
No, it doesn't.
Oh,
It
it
doesn't.
doesn't.
No.
So they're
No.
implying that you would get this
You get your
21,
first 21 years to be able to have a life before
Yeah.
you.
So
but
basically, if you're far enough advanced in the counseling of Scientology, the theory is Scientology's theory, not my theory, is that when you drop the body, you then get to skip the what's called between lives implant that mind wipes you. So then you can come back remembering who you were last lifetime and pick back up where you left off and being more capable and maybe remembering some other languages and stuff. Again, I never saw it happen. This is all very theoretical.
Yeah.
um but that's the theory.
Now, not I know I'm gonna push us off into the weeds on this one for sure, but I have
Okay.
to. Um, we had heard that because with that idea and that theory that you've lived a million lifetimes before, that really leads a lot of opportunity for abuse to children because you start saying, well, they're not really children anymore. Can you speak to that
Completely.
a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. Hubbard said many times that children are adults in small bodies, and they are not to be treated as children.
jeez.
In fact, there are, again, not to get into the weeds, but there are ethics conditions in Scientology, and the official ones are they go from, at the very bottom is confusion, state of confusion. That's a lower condition. Then you have treason, which is betrayal after trust. Then you have enemy. Then you have doubt, liability, non-existence. And then as you start coming up, you're doing better and better and better. Hubbard had a condition even below confusion, which is the worst condition a Scientologist could possibly be in. And that was the condition of child.
Jeez. So people would look down at the children as lesser.
Yeah, they're not allowed to dramatize. And I mean, oh my gosh, the language that I grew up with was like, don't be banky. Bank is reference to your reactive bank, which is the source of all aberration and psychosomatic problems, and anything illogical that you're doing in life stems from the reactive bank. So the kids, as a child, I was told many times, don't be banky, or don't cut my comm, or you're being nattery. It's just like, oh my God, so deep into the indoctrination of these beliefs of Scientology that are really condemnatory and really I would say it's difficult to express how twisted they are, in that they eventually get you doing the work of keeping yourself entrapped. So what I mean by that is like, oh, if I have a critical thought, then that must mean I've done horrible things. And therefore, if I want to leave Scientology, that means I'm a suppressive person and I've done terrible things. That, it's like all roads lead back to you. It's a very elaborate system of smoke and mirrors.
They definitely played the words very purposefully, right? They definitely had their reasons for saying it the way they did, unfortunately, and it works. We see this in so many different groups as well. So speaking of having a thought against the church, when signing these 5 different contracts, did you ever have a thought of, I don't want to do this? Maybe what am I doing here?
Many times, all the time. I never wanted to be in the Sea organization, but of course I could never say that out loud. At one point when I was 13, 14, I even went to my mom and my stepdad and I said, can you please help me stop these recruiters? I cannot say no. They just will not leave me alone. I mean, they were keeping me in recruit interviews until like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, by myself, no, because hey, I'm a adult in a small body. So, and it was really wearing down on me to the point where I felt like I had no way to say no. And by that time, I had done what's called the Professional TRs course, which is the highest level of training in Scientology's communication drills. And one of the products of that course is that you are allegedly able to handle any communication situation, no matter how rough. So when I went to my parents and said, hey, I need help with this, I cannot get these recruiters away from me, and I can't say no. They're like, well, you finished the Pro TRs course, so you should be able to handle this.
Jeez.
And yeah, it was, I mean, I'll be honest. My whole childhood was a complete train wreck, and I had no perspective on it, honestly, until the moment I had kids of my own. And then, oh my gosh, the floodgates opened, and all of a sudden it was like this, retroactive perspective flooded in, like, and at every milestone that my kids have reached, it brings me great joy to have children of my own, but it also brings me massive amounts of rage to go, man, what Scientology did to me, to many other children, is so criminal that I've made it my life purpose to somehow, someday, some way make it illegal to involve children in cults. It's absolutely awful and evil, and intended to break down the basic foundations of our civilization.
I could not agree more. Unfortunately, in most cults, it's the children that are most taken advantage of, and that
Completely.
that you see are always involved in these situations. And it's so frustrating, especially since we have our own kids now, to think about just what these kids go through. it's hard to even think about,
It
let
is.
alone talk about. But these people, these leaders of these groups, take advantage of the innocence of these children.
Yeah.
And once again, I can't imagine speaking to our kids like they're adults.
I
Like,
know.
oh, you should have your stuff figured out. You're not an actual kid. You just look like a kid. I mean, what kind of person could say that?
I
Yeah.
know. Do you know that, have you heard of what's referred to as Commodore's messengers, that were the young kids that ran messages for L. Ron Hubbard? Have you come across that?
No.
No.
Okay, so the Sea Organization was founded on ships at sea in the late 60s,
Hmm.
and L. Ron Hubbard created the Commodore's Messenger Organization, which was literally primarily young girls, like teenage girls, that were his messengers. The reason I bring that up is because there's writing from L. Ron Hubbard saying that the ideal age to recruit a messenger for his messenger organization is 6 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
The
man.
ideal age, huh?
Right. That's where Nazi youth comes in, because you get them as a clean slate, that innocence, and you can corrupt it and overwrite it and reprogram it. It's very, very evil and very calculated, but that's what it is. Like, take Shelley Miscavige, for example. Her parents got into Scientology when she was, I think, 5 or 6 years old. Do you know that they left her in Dallas, Texas with her two sisters when she was about 8 years old, and they went to Austin, and her sisters ended up in an orphanage because they were by themselves in an apartment for days.
Oh my god.
Then they moved to Los Angeles, joined the Sea Organization, and her sisters were literally trafficked to Mexico. The parents had no idea where she was. So, point being that this is systemic abuse of children. It's not just my childhood. It's been going on for decades in Scientology.
Like you said, I feel like a huge aspect to so many of these groups is the idea that either, like you said, that children aren't really children or meant to be treated that way, right? In the FLDS, it's child brides. Oh, they're mature enough. They're ready for marriage. They need to have, they need to have their mindset on that. They need to be taught about being a mother and a wife starting from a super young age, even within Mormonism. And we didn't have like underage marriages or arranged marriages or anything like that. I was being taught how to be a good wife and mother from the time you're super young, but especially at the age of 12 as a girl. That's when you're like really getting geared up. And I just found a note the other day at a youth group activity note where it was like writing down all the things that I wanted in a husband, and I was 12 years old.
Hmm.
Right. So it's like all of that focus so much, but it feels like all of them will try to treat the children as property, right? Whether they're being trafficked or whether they are being told separated from their parents and families, or any type of control over them from a young age. And then they're just so scared of either leaving because they don't know what the outside world holds. In the FLDS, girls, I'm like, well, they've been taught from a young age that all they're supposed to be is a mother and a wife. They don't get education. And then how are they supposed to leave? What are they supposed to do? Right.
Well, and they've lived their whole lives under such intense control that the idea of being able to accomplish something on their own or do something, without
Yeah.
someone telling them to do it is just not even a thought they have. I mean, they're so used to being told what to do. Is that something you experienced?
Yes. So, on that note, one of the questions I've most struggled with is like, wow, you seem like a normal person. Like, why did it take you so long to escape? And I'm like, well, I was born into it and raised. It was the only life I ever knew. My entire family, any friend I ever had, was all in that insular world of Scientology. What was I supposed to do? Raise my hand at the hospital as a newborn and be like, I don't want to be in a cult, it's
Yeah.
really, really difficult. And that is, again, it circles back to my conviction that it should be illegal to involve children in situations like that where they don't have choice. They're very often not given educational opportunities that would help them to make their own choices and go their own direction.
Mhm.
So absolutely, it's I think very definitively and carefully constructed that way to control and leverage people, but especially children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as a teenager, you've signed all of these billionaire contracts and you realize like I don't want this, but your parents aren't going to really help you get out of it because you are an adult in a child's body and you should be able to handle it yourself. Moving to America, did you think that that was going to be a fresh start in some way, or were you moving to America for the Church of Scientology? I don't like calling it a church, but
Yeah, no, me neither. It's a business masquerading as a church, destroying people's lives in a very as a cult. No, I absolutely thought I had always wanted to move to America. I I 100% thought that it would take me away from every construct that I considered, that I'd grown up with, that was the structure of Scientology. So I thought it would be a completely fresh start. Unfortunately, that was absolutely not the case. My parents never even put me back in school. So then I was only doing Scientology training. So again, I was 13 when we moved here. I literally never went to high school a day in my life. I just got my GED last year, 2 weeks before my oldest son graduated high school, because I wanted him to know how important it was to me that he have a proper education and have all the opportunities that Mark and I never had.
well,
Wow.
congratulations,
Yes.
by the way. That is super
Congratulations.
Thank you.
exciting.
I did the same. I did the same. And
Nice.
man, that felt so good to say, hey, I have a piece of paper, proof that I got an education of
Right?
some
I
kind.
know.
So
I am going to work on eventually getting a degree. I'm working on my book now, and when that's done, I'm going to resume, because like I had dreams and hopes and everything as a young child, and they were torpedoed completely by Scientology. And I just don't believe that there should never be, I think it's never too late. Like take charge of your life right
Yeah.
now. Do what you want with it. Make of it what you want it to be. Be the good, do do all the things. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. So how were you able to get out?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so fast forwarding really, cuz well, so 16, I started in the Sea Organization in Los Angeles. Within a few months, I was promoted or moved up to their headquarters, which was this 500-acre compound in the middle of Riverside County. It's actually in Gilman Hot Springs, California. Very heavily guarded. My parents had to sign over guardianship of me so that I could even be
Oh,
allowed to
wow.
go
Oh my
there. They
God.
were not allowed to know where I worked for 14 years. They didn't even no, nobody in Scientology is allowed to know the physical location of that property, because of course they're paranoid that government and police will come and raid them for their criminal activities, which harkens back to L. Ron Hubbard. Anyhow, so so at
Jeez.
16, so now it's let's see, September 1991. I arrive at this compound, very quickly realize that I've reached the a worse equivalent of supermax is the best I can describe it as. Like there's a security force, there's you can look online, but there's like razor topped fences, there's motion sensors, there's floodlights. It's 4 miles to the nearest sign of any population or humanity. Very, very isolated, very, very controlled. But the positive is this is where I met my husband, Mark. So, you know,
Oh, wow.
every cloud
Okay.
has a silver lining, right? And by the way, today is our 33rd wedding anniversary. So
Wow.
Oh, amazing.
Congratulations.
we,
Congratulations.
That's
Oh,
yes,
that's
amazing.
we are a
wonderful.
statistical anomaly when it comes to having, what we've lived through. It's weird. It's like having had two marriages. But anyway, back to where
Yeah.
I was. So I spent 5 years in Golden Era Productions in the training division. I was what they call a supervisor, which is the real world equivalent of a teacher. Then in March 1996, I was moved to Religious Technology Center, which is the organization run directly by David and, at the time, Shelley Miscavige.
Sorry, real quick. Did it at this point, is this all still on that same
Yes,
compound? Or I don't know if
it
compound's the
is.
right word. And what did they tell you is the purpose behind you going there? So you're saying that there's teaching, so you're teaching other Sea Org members, but like what did they say the compound was for?
So it was just the like, oh, the best you can do as a member of the Sea organization is to be promoted to this place. And I think it's important to just say, like, you cannot refuse a promotion in Scientology, in any position. If you do, then, it's like the way I've compared it, it's like if you have a skyscraper and the elevator, you go up the elevator, but there's no stairs down, and the elevator is a one way. You're just going deeper and deeper and deeper into the spider web and becoming more and more and more isolated away from anything that you considered your life might look like. So ironically, originally I was supposed to be a superpower auditor, which is these rundowns called superpower, literally. Part of which is, the cause resurgence rundown, which is now in Clearwater, where you run around a pole for 5 to 12 hours a day.
Jeez.
What?
Really?
That's the superpower?
That's called the cause resurgence rundown. And that is one rundown of the superpower rundowns. Yes.
Wow. And how is that supposed to serve you?
It's supposed to clear up all your perceptions and your ability to operate as a cause over matter, energy, space, and time, and give you literally superpowers.
Wow. So they're mentally just trying to break you down.
I want to make sure I understand this. There's a pole, like a fire pole.
Yes.
Or a flagpole.
Or a flagpole. There we go.
Yep.
And are you hanging on to it while you're running around?
No. So it's a running track. Don't laugh, but this is taken from Hubbard Advices. That is based on, we're all beings that came from, outer space. And so the concept of it is that if you think of a planet going around the sun, orbiting, it's also, so that's part of it. And then also the Hubbard datum or the Hubbard whatever writings about confusion and the stable datum. If you're in a state of confusion, how you fix that is you pick one stable datum. So it's also twisted into that. Like, so you're running around the pole and you entirely focus all of your attention on the center of the pole, and you run 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 until you can run forever.
Oh,
wow.
I would be dead from dizziness.
Yeah, well, it's a large track, to be fair. It's not like, so if it's a large circumference, so it's not like you're running, you're not literally spinning. It's different. It's
big. It's like a racetrack, but maybe not so big.
Exactly. Yeah. They used to have it at the headquarters. In fact, Mark did the cause resurgence rundown. I never did it. I had read all the Hubbard writings about it because I was supposed to supervise it. I didn't end up doing that, but that's how I ended up reading all this material about this insanity.
So how long are you supposed to do, or for how many days or years are you supposed to do this before you unwind yourself?
You just do it until you reach what Scientology calls end phenomena. Have you heard of that?
Nope.
Or the EP, as they like to say, Scientology and their acronyms.
And I thought Mormonism had a lot of acronyms.
They do.
People will be like, Mormonism and their acronyms. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I think Scientologists have got us. So
I know it is tricky when you like getting out and winding all that back. And then when we get back together with other friends who are former Scientologists, you snap right back into it and you're like, oh no, I gotta stop. It's gotta stop. But
so your EP?
Yeah, EP is the end phenomena. So for any action in Scientology, whether it be the cause resurgence rundown or an auditing program or anything, there's an end phenomena. And that means that sometimes it's even very specific, like but for example, on the Bridge to Total Freedom, it has all the levels of Scientology. And in one of those columns, it says what the end phenomena is. And so you keep doing that level until you've reached that end phenomena. And in the cause resurgence rundown, it's that you're a cause and you can keep going forever. And then you're done. So that could take weeks. It could take months. It could even take years.
Or for me, I would be like, I would do one lap and be like, made it. I'm done. Got it. Phenomena. Here I am. I
I'm
could do it
feeling
forever.
it.
You don't need to test me anymore. I'm good.
But but they wouldn't let you do that because they would say that's quickie. You can't quickie it.
They called it. Oh my
They called it a
gosh!
quickie, huh?
Wow.
They called
Okay.
it quickie. I'm not joking.
That
Oh my
acronym I do
word.
There,
understand.
there's
Oh
a
my word.
policy that says quickie defined, and that's for people just trying to fast track and get through it real quick. And no, that's not allowed. That's a suppressive act too.
Oh, of course it
Wow.
is, right? So there's
Of
always someone
course.
there to judge whether or not you're doing it
Who
right
decides?
enough.
Who decides when you reach EP?
So there's a person that supervises that program, and then they send reports to what's called the case supervisor. That's the person who oversees this. Any person doing any action in Scientology has a case supervisor, and that person reads through all the notes and the records and everything, and will decide if the person has made the end phenomena or not, or if they need to keep going.
Okay, I see. Would they use meters to determine?
They could, yep, absolutely. The cause resurgence rundown is not generally done using an e-meter, obviously,
Okay.
because you're running around a pole. But yes, there are many other levels that do involve use of the e-meter
Mhm.
for the steps on the bridge to total freedom, or then you get into other things like interrogations and what they call ethics interviews and all this other nonsense of how they control their members.
So
Mm.
what was the craziest, you said you didn't do the running thing. What was the craziest thing that you experienced? I mean, other than childhood trauma, but I mean like as far as like these specific steps. What's the
Uh,
craziest thing that you had to do?
Definitely the OT levels, because I did up to OT level 5, and you can only go up to 8.
Okay.
Um, most people are like, they pay a lot of money. Because I was in the C organization, and at this time I was in Religious Technology Center, I was actually told by Shelley Miscavige, if you don't get to OT3 by this date, then you're getting kicked out.
Oh wow.
Oh my word.
And again, if you get kicked out, there's serious consequences for that. I could have ended up on the rehabilitation project force. Anyway, it's again one-way road the deeper
Yeah.
in you get. So I did OT3, and yeah, that was learning about Xenu and body thetans, and how everyone on Earth was brought here from a planet, from other planets, because it was part of a depopulation strategy. And so Xenu took all the criminals and the artists and the tax people and shuttled them off and flew them in DC-7 planes, and then combusted them into volcanoes in hydrogen cubes. Yeah, it's
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's a lot. It's a lot. And I will say, the only logical thing to understand, it's the one of the more elaborate cases of the Emperor's New Clothes that you've ever come across.
Okay. Dang. Okay. So,
Interesting.
question, at this point, you're being forced into, like you said, that one way path. You're going up the elevator. You don't really have a choice. When you are getting to the point where you're hearing stories about Xenu, right? We saw like a little thing from L. Ron Hubbard, and we thought it was a spoof video. Like we thought people were making fun of Scientologists. Then we found out, like, no, that was their actual video, right?
Right.
So things
Yes.
that sound completely outlandish to a regular person, when you get to that point and you're hearing that, are you so deep into it that you're like, okay, yeah, that just makes sense? Or does your mind say, this is insane and I just don't have a choice, and so I've got to keep going?
So my honest answer to that is none of the above. By that
Oh.
time, the the critical voice in the back of my head was so locked in the back room that, like, there's no, like, it's just a matter of make it through the day, try and survive. Like, at that point, I had been married to Mark for 12 years. I'd been pressured hundreds of times to divorce him. I was just trying to survive and make it through the day. Questioning anything was not an option. It was completely, because if you do that, if you open that door, the moment you start letting the thoughts flood in, you're toast. I mean, next time you get interrogated, if I say, you know what, I think this whole Xenu thing is bullshit, then I'm out. That I'm going to be on separated from Mark, put under lockup, interrogated, heavy manual labor, like extreme. There was always, it was like I said, fight for survival. And honestly, in that mindset, I didn't see a way out. I didn't think it was possible for me to have a life outside that world. I truly didn't believe that. And also, I was so leveraged by the entire structure of my life, having been born into it. Like, truly, I'm sure, and I'm sure you can relate to that. Like, truly thinking, if I escape, I may never see my husband again. I may never talk to my mother ever again. Like, that's heavy, heavy duress, you know?
I know exactly what you mean. And my first thought was, or my first thought when you were sharing your story here was, I wonder if they ever physically had to hold you or restrain you. And then my second thought was, I doubt it, because for me and my experience and so many people I've talked to, they didn't have to physically hold me because I was so convinced mentally and so afraid of what I would lose if I stepped out of line. They didn't have to, and I was just going to go along with it because that's all I had. Did you ever?
Yeah, and then when you left, it came to pass
When
where you
when
did
I
lose
left, and I
everything.
lost my family and lost everything I knew, and had to completely start from the ground zero. So for you, I do have to ask now that I brought it up. Did you ever experience physical restraint?
I did a
Oh
number
wow.
of times. The worst example of that was after Mark escaped. Actually, no, backing up. So I was in Religious Technology Center until September 2004. I was kicked out from there by David Miscavige for the sole reason that I refused to divorce my husband, Mark. And I was put in the hole, which Mike Rinder talks about in his book, A Billion Years. The hole was a double wide trailer that was under heavy security. We were not allowed to go home. I was sleeping on the floor of my office. It only got even worse after Mark escaped on January 4th, 2005, because he left me behind. And so that was in that moment, when that was my final breaking point, when I realized that if I didn't get the hell out of there, not only would I not survive, I truly believed I would die, but also I would never see my husband again.
So at this point, when Mark escaped, was he able to tell you that he was planning on escaping, or did he have to just run out in the middle of the night?
He rode off on his motorcycle. We had Nextel phone radios. They belonged to the organization, but he had radioed me and asked me if I was coming home that night. And I told him, I'm going to try, but I don't think I'm going to be allowed to go. Though it was, again, I was in the hole. Some days we were allowed to go home just to get a change of clothes, but not very often. So I said I was going to try. And then that next morning, he got on his motorcycle, rode off. Unfortunately, security was waiting, they were posted outside the house that we lived, that was just a half a mile from the property. So they were immediately on his tail. Security ran him off the road. A passerby happened to see this and called 911. The police report, by the way, is in Mark's book, Blown for Good: Behind the Iron Curtain of Scientology. It's insane. But thank goodness that passerby called 911, and Riverside County Sheriff's Office responded. And that's the only way my husband was able to successfully escape, which
Oh, wow.
years later, I went and met with Riverside County Sheriff's Office on various different projects we were working on. And I got to thank them in person. I broke down crying, just saying, if it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't be here today. So thank you for, I know, of course, there's, not all of any profession is good, but those police officers that responded that day were the reason Mark was able to escape. So then here was I left behind going, what?
Yeah. How big of a shock in the sense that you didn't know that he was questioning or deciding whether he was leaving? Probably, at least from what we understand, because if he had said it to anybody, they would have reported him, right?
Right.
So he leaves and someone comes and tells you that he left. What was your emotion in that moment?
It was, I mean, I had been up all night. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting at my desk, kind of just dozing off for a few minutes. And then it was like 11:30 in the morning. Somebody walks in and tells me, oh, Jenny Linson needs to speak to you right away. And she at the time was the executive that was over the organization and the whole, which is where I was working. And she tells me, Mark is blowing. That's the word, which you wanted to ask me about that. I know,
Yes.
Melissa.
Yeah. Okay.
Mark
Yeah.
is blowing. Okay.
Blowing.
What does
So-
that mean?
Okay. So a blow is Hubbard's word for an unauthorized departure. So actually, it's an escape. But the reason I use escape, not only do I refuse to use Scientology language unless my life depends on it, which it never does, but blow is, it's again what we were talking about of how the language and the semantics are intended to control, leverage, and manipulate you. So in Scientology, a blow is caused by overts and withholds. So he's blowing, therefore that automatically means, just in that simple, Mark is blowing 3-word sentence, it means that he's done terrible things and he's a very bad person.
So you get told that.
Yep.
And what's your next step?
My entire world shattered. And I mean, so many thoughts were flying through my head, like, why didn't he tell me? And, when we talked about this on Scientology in the Aftermath, and I will say it now because not that I'm proud of it, but it's the truth. Like, had I made it home that morning, and had he told me I'm out of here, I don't know what my response would have been. I might have ratted him out because it was the only life I'd ever known. I was born into it, and my entire family relationship depended on me being there and doing what I was doing. And I loved my husband. I still love my husband, obviously, but that's why I have to be realistic. Like, had that happened, of course it didn't happen, but had it happened, I don't know what my response would have been in the mindset that I was in at that moment. Either way, that conversation never happened. So the next 3 weeks were the absolute worst weeks of my life. I was trying to figure out how to get out of there, which is very, very hard. I obviously came up with a plan, and it was to cut to the end of the story. Basically, I requested authorization to go to an eye doctor appointment in Walmart. I had to get that approved by 5 different people. I had to have a security escort go with me to the appointment.
Jeez.
But I had managed to, undetected, get a message to Mark and tell him that I needed his help and I had to get out of there. And he was like, but what about your family? I'm like, I'm going to die if I stay here. I cannot stay here. And I'm not, that's it. I've reached the end of the road. So, so with his help, we agreed that I would, call a cab that would be waiting at Walmart for me on the dot of when my eye appointment was. So then I had to somehow ditch this security escort. Anyway, it was absolute insanity. I managed to convince, her name was Christy. She was this big, like, taller than me, twice the size of me woman. And I said, oh, it's 10:15. It's my appointment. Can you just drop me off up front? I don't want to be late. So she let me climb out of the car. Meanwhile, the cab is on the other side. And I walked as fast as I could, jumped in the cab. The cab driver's like, Barbara Smith. I'm like, that's me.
Oh my word.
But the worst part is that I panicked when so from there, I went from Walmart in Hemet, I went to the Riverside County bus station, and then took a bus to Barstow. In Barstow, I was supposed to call Mark on a payphone, and I panicked and turned my organization phone back on for a brief minute. And as a result of that, 5 hours later, by the time I got to Las Vegas on my way to reunite with Mark, who was in Kansas City, Missouri, there were 5 staffers waiting for me at the Vegas bus station to intercept me and bring me back. They called Mark and said, "We caught her. She's not coming." Oh my gosh. The nightmares have gotten better, but it is nothing I would wish on anybody.
So, oh my goodness, sorry, I have so many
Oof.
questions. Obviously, in that moment, I imagine you were just horrified. So, I do have to ask though. You say they called Mark and told him, "Ha, caught her." Were they still? I thought he just escaped.
He did, but they had been tracking him down. And so, using private investigators and whatever else. And in fact, I had even figured out most likely where I knew Mark to be. And so before I escaped, I was told David Miscavige ordered that Mark be brought back. So imagine my dilemma now. I'm thinking, oh, if I make a break for it and escape, meanwhile, they're bringing him back, we're still never going to see each other ever again. So I had to bide my time. But they asked me, "Oh, well, give me Mark's phone number in the Greyhound bus station." I'm like, "I'm not doing that. You have his number." And sure enough, they did have his number because they'd gotten it through whatever private investigators they were using to find him, and that's how they then called him.
Okay, geez.
Now, I'm trying to picture, like, let's say we were down at the bus station because we live in Vegas, right? And you
Yes.
see, because you're an adult and there's all these other adult people trying to convince you to leave with them. Was there a scene to that where like onlookers going, what is going on? Did someone try to step in and aid, or was it they were threatening you and you just went peaceably with them because it wasn't going to be worth the fight?
Oh, no, I did not go with them. In fact, so first of all, it was January and it was like 6 o'clock at night. So it's completely dark.
Yeah.
I knew that I had to get off the bus at that bus station because I had a change of bus. And so I waited for every single person to get off the bus before I got off because I was already convinced that they were tracking me down. I knew that that's what they do. I'd seen it happen hundreds, if not thousands of times. I knew that, and in fact, Shelley Miscavige told me personally that I had forgone my right to escape, quote unquote.
Oh,
To blow is the word she used, but
Yeah.
that was the message loud and clear. So I was convinced that they weren't just going to let me go quietly. So by the time I got off the bus, I went to open the door and boom, there's already immediately 2 guys, a 6-foot guy, Greg Wilhair, who was David Miscavige's henchman at the time, and another woman named Sharon. Anyway, they were right there trying to stop me from going even into the bus station. And they said, "Oh, you're not doing this." And I just walked into the bus station. I put my purse in the middle of the station on the floor and I sat down. And in my mind, you know, I it's almost comical thinking back on it. Like, why didn't I call the police? But you have to understand the mindset of Scientology is you never call the police. And I wasn't trying to make a problem for them. I was just trying to reunite with my husband. So that thought never occurred to me. But nonetheless, I sat down on my purse and in my mind, I just thought, okay, if they even lay one finger on me, I'm just going to scream and hope and pray that somebody will take pity on me. And because I'm surrounded by like 4 people who are all telling me that I'm destroying my family, and they're on and on and on and on. And I basically just theoretically plugged my ears When they called Mark, though, and told him that I wasn't coming, I thought, well, I'm just going to get on the bus, and obviously they know where I am. I'll just turn the phone back on, which is how they tracked me there, and call him and tell him I'm coming. And of course, he was like, what happened?
Yeah. Oh my word.
Oh my gosh. So when you were told, this is just fun to say at this point, when you were told Mark is blowing, and and you explained a little bit ago that meant he's doing all of these awful things, he's a horrible person. Did that ever actually cross your mind, or did you know they were just trying to make him seem that way?
It did. I mean, I had so many questions like, wait a minute, you're escaping and I'm here. Like, what does this mean for us? And but at the end of the day, I thought, this is my husband. I've been married to him for 13 years. And now all of a sudden, you're telling me that he's an evil person. That is not my husband. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Good for you.
And obviously I was not saying this out loud, but it was the breaking point because I'm like, no, that doesn't compute. And I'm not going to believe, it's the loyalty that you have for friends or your loved ones or whatever, like I'm not going to accept this at face value anymore. This is, again, the cracks were seriously starting to form and just making me go, but is he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get the
Wow.
bus, and I'm guessing Mark's waiting for you. What was
Oh my
that
gosh.
reuniting? What was that? What's the word? Yeah.
The reunion.
Yeah. What was the reunion like?
It was magical relief, freedom. It was the first moment of freedom of my entire life. And
Mm.
it was such joy and exhilaration. I've reflected on this, comparing experiences subsequent in the real world. Oftentimes people make change paths in life or, things happen. And I think it's fair to say that in most instances, there's pros and cons. There's like reflection and there's things you're going to miss. In this case, there was absolutely none of that. It was such complete relief and exhilaration that for the first time ever, I could have my own thoughts, make my own decisions, make my life what I wanted it to be. It was, and honestly, there's not a day that goes by that I don't feel that same way in this moment, even 20 years later. Like
Wow.
Mm.
it just is, my freedom and my life and my thoughts and my process of undoing 30 years of indoctrination has been quite the journey.
Oh man,
Yeah,
I
I
can
was gonna
only
say,
imagine.
yeah. How long did it take you to shake maybe some of the fear, at least in our experience, and for most people that we talk to that leave high demand groups, that fear of, oh wait, did I make the right decision? Or like Sam even said the other day, it's like in Rapunzel, where she comes out of the tower and she's like, this is the best day ever. I'm a horrible person. I'm free.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna break my mother's heart. Where it's like this back and forth, right? Where you
Yeah.
feel like both sides of that emotion. What was that like for you? Like, what kind of things were you still fearing, or that the indoctrination still kind of ran there with you while you're feeling all this freedom and excitement, but over here you're still like, oh my gosh, what just happened?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think in my case, it was different because Scientology was never my choice in the first place.
Mm.
But what I did have was incredible guilt and loss of my family. So even initially I was trying to cooperate. And I emailed Office of Special Affairs, Kirsten Catano, and said, hey, I'm here in Kansas City, Missouri. Um, and it turned out after the fact that the day I escaped, they called all of my family in to Scientology organizations. My stepdad was in Clearwater. My mom, my sisters were in Los Angeles. They called them all in and showed them my suppressive person declare and told them that they could never speak to me ever again.
Oh my.
I didn't find that out until 4 months later, but it was as as traumatic and awful as my childhood was, I love my family. I love my sisters like they're my own kids. I looked after them more than my mom did from when they were born until they were 6, 4, and 2 when I joined the Sea Organization. So granted, that's a long time ago, and I'm essentially a stranger to them, but I still felt that loss, and I didn't want to lose my family.
Yeah.
So, but eventually I realized that they're controlled, and Scientology is not going to let them go. And meanwhile, my husband, Mark, started posting about things that happened, and I started to gain perspective on like the hell and life that we had lived through, and started to wake up to the fact that, wait a minute, none of this is right. This is all very, very wrong. This is a dangerous and abusive cult. And especially the moment my children were born, my oldest son was born 1 year and 1 month after I escaped. And my husband called my mom when we were in the hospital and I was giving birth to her, not to her, to him, my son, but he called my mother and talked to her. And she said, I can't talk to you. And she hung up the phone. This is her first grandson being born. And, again, of course, everyone knows Scientology is a destructive, abusive cult that destroys families and hurts children, abuses elders, and many other things. But all of those things on my path out helped me to wake up to the reality of the life I had been living.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I would love to think that after you and Mark escaped, and then of course, I want to get into where you are today, but I would love to think that you were able to just live your lives and be happy. But I hear so many times that when someone does escape, that you're constantly being watched over. You're having these investigators, trying to dig up dirt and make you seem like these awful people. Did you have to deal with some of that stuff as well?
Extensively. I mean, we've had that for 20 years now. We've had private investigators collecting our trash, tapping our phones, and we even have proof of that from documents that Mike Rinder gave to us when he escaped several years after we did. But they were going to sue us. They had people spying on us. Like, we had a birthday party for my husband, and there were like 5 people there who were masquerading as our friends, who were meanwhile reporting back to Scientology on what we were doing. And then they had, they've had hate sites up on us since, gosh, I think 2012 now. So, that's how Scientology uses their tax exempt dollars to silence and destroy utterly, or attempt to destroy utterly, anyone who dares speak their truth of their experiences in Scientology.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I mean, I understand why they're doing it, because they want to make themselves look good and make everyone that says anything negative about them look bad. But the lengths they're willing to go to just annoy the crap out of people, it's just so
And trying to
frustrating.
destroy their lives.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have-
Yeah, like it's been going on for decades. I don't know if you've Googled Operation Snow White, but
No.
that's a whole other deep dive for another day. But that is something that was found when the FBI raided Scientology's buildings in Los Angeles and in DC, and then they also raided in Canada. I think a little bit later than that, but it's a very dark and criminal organization, and there's a long and well documented history of that.
Wow.
So today, we know you have a YouTube channel and you work for an organization called.
Oh, so I have a day job, but yes, I volunteer for. So I have a bookkeeping company that we work with small businesses all over the U.S. My husband does audiovisual for museums, and then in our spare time, we volunteer for the Michael J. Rinder Aftermath Foundation. I serve as board president. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization that helps people get out of Scientology and start new lives. We have a billboard program in Los Angeles that just provides the message like need help leaving Scientology, and we have a 24/7 crisis line people can call, which is working. As I mentioned before we started this show, we've had people call in seeing those billboards and get out of Scientology as a result. And then depending on their degree of involvement in Scientology, we often help with emergency housing, transportation costs, reuniting them with their families outside of Scientology, who they've often been isolated from. We have an education grant program. We have an online support group, career counseling. Anyway, many different ways to support people in giving them hope that it is never too late to start a new life after Scientology.
Wow.
Oh, that's
You
wonderful.
should do a mic drop and walk out right now. No, that's amazing. That's amazing that you're doing so
amazing.
much, and we've heard so much good about you and your husband, and
Yes.
the good you're doing to help other people. So thank you for all that you're doing, and your YouTube channel for all of our viewers here today, Blown for Good. Go check it out. And now we know where the name came from.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Blown
Blown.
for good.
Yes, and
Okay.
it's Blown for Good, Scientology Exposed. So there you go. But yeah,
Scientology.
I'll give you the links. It's all good.
Yes, we will have all the links down in the description. One thing that we always, before we'll let you go, because I know, man, time flies.
It
Time
does.
flies. But one thing we always ask people is if somebody that's in Scientology right now was watching and was willing to have an open heart and an open mind, what would you want to say to somebody that is still in?
You know, I would say look at your life and evaluate the reasons you chose to get into Scientology. Look at where you've come to and where with your family, your relationships. Is this what you signed up for? And if any answer to that is no, it's never too late to get out and take a different path. If you've seen somebody hurt in Scientology, then no, don't justify that. Don't explain that away. This is not how the real world operates. And again, it's never too late. And it's not your fault. Not your fault. Get out now.
I love it.
Love that so much. Well, thank you so much again for being here. We'll leave all the links down below in the descriptions. I'm guessing the websites there, ways to be able to support that organization as well.
Yes. Yes, 100%. And I will say, I would love to at some point do a follow-up conversation just because I know I kind of dominated the conversation. I'm sorry with my story.
Love it.
But comparing like your comments about some of the similarities and differences is just so fascinating to me. And that's why I was drawn to, again, we had multiple of our viewers telling us, oh, you've got to talk to Melissa and Sam. They're doing awesome work. And anyway, here we are.
Twist my arm.
Yeah, sounds
We would
good.
love to have you back on, Claire. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. And we definitely look forward to having you back with us. And we could be happy to come and talk to you on your channel as well.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you both. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you all so much for being here with us, and we really appreciate all of your support and love, and we look forward to talking with you soon.
Talk to y'all soon.